in the US today. They know it. You take the slogan, "Make America Great Again." Let's analyze the 4 words. Make America Great Again means that it was great once. It is no longer great now. It's in decline. But we want it to recover. So the fact that America is in decline is no longer contested even by the Americans themselves.
有时候一个外国人讲中国问题，最有价值的地方不是他说了多少好听的话，而是他把西方自己不愿意说的那一层说出来。杨荣文这段采访最值得看的地方就在这里，他没有上来就说中国多厉害，也没有简单说美国完了，他说的是美国现在的焦虑。表面上看是中国崛起，是俄乌，是中东，是贸易，是科技战，但更深一层是美国开始感觉到自己的边界了。
Whether consciously or not, the US is sensing its own limitation, that it has been overextended. It's expressed in a growing national debt. It's reached a point now where the annual debt servicing exceeds the defense budget, let alone paying back the capital amount. This is not sustainable. Therefore, there has to be a change of national policy and a certain retreat of the US from its global entanglements is a necessity because it cannot be afforded. So Trump wants to consolidate around his own hemisphere. Of course, he's a negotiator, so his ask is always much greater than his bottom line. He wants everything from Greenland all the way down to South America. He will get less than he has asked for. But because he's a very aggressive negotiator, what he gets may in fact be more than what he's prepared to accept. He asked Canada to be the 51st state. Naturally, the Canadians balk. But if he suddenly says, look, let's renegotiate trade agreements, let's do things in a way which favor America more, the Canadians may well be relieved to offer him those concessions because the original proposition was for Canada to be incorporated into the US. Look what he's done to Venezuela. He's kidnapped Maduro, spirited him away, killed many of his bodyguards, and intimidated the entire Venezuelan population. Does he want to take over Venezuela? Can he? Well, whatever it is intimidated not only Venezuelans, but people in his hemisphere. And the next time he says something, they will take him seriously. Of course, in this game, no one has a final move. He may want China out of South America. But do the South Americans want China out? Because it's in their own interest.
过去几十年，美国习惯了把全球都当成自己的责任范围，军事基地铺出去，美元体系撑起来，盟友体系围起来，看起来什么都能管。但问题是，这套东西不是免费的，债务要还，产业会空心化，国内社会会分裂，普通人会觉得自己被全球化甩下车。所以杨荣文说，美国已经过度扩张了，这个判断很关键。因为很多人看美国对中国强硬，会以为这是美国特别有信心，其实恰恰相反，越是开始意识到撑不住，越想把战线收回来，越想把别人的发展空间压一压。
Can no longer do what it used to do in the past because the relative weights have changed. It's got national debt. The US dollar is being threatened. Every central bank, every major corporation in the world, every wealthy family worries about exposure to the US dollar. And one day, if the US dollar loses its reserve position in the world, then the flywheel turns the other way. Instead of financing all these hundreds of bases around the world on the strength of the US dollar so that American taxpayers don't have to pay for them directly. But all of us do because we are users of the US dollar. Once that magic spell is broken and people start treating the US dollar in a different way, then bases will have to be shut down. And the US will have to limit many of its involvement in the politics of other countries and regions. So this is the period of transition that we're now going through. Trump is not the cause of it. Trump has no sense of history. He's a deal maker. He is a very aggressive deal maker. I don't think he has a sense of larger tides flowing in the world. But in a sense, he is a catalyst. He's making things happen faster than they otherwise would happen. And what we are going to see eventually will be a multipolar world. The US still has a very big pull, influential, prestigious, but China now has another very big pull, maybe even bigger than the US in terms of its economy. Russia will remain a pole. The Europeans will have to rediscover their own footing on their own. Still close to the US, but having to stand on their own 2 feet. They will be a pole if they can somehow keep the European Union together. India will be its own pole. Brazil will be its own pole with influence in South America. So this is a world we're entering. The period of adjustment from the end of the Cold War to an American-dominated post-Cold War world to the multipolar world that is coming. This is a transition which is creating a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety in the world.
这也是为什么他说特朗普不是原因，而是催化剂。特朗普把美国社会里本来就存在的情绪说出来了。我们不想再当全球秩序的冤大头，我们要先保住自己，我们要把制造业、边境、债务、美元这些问题重新抓回来。但这里有一个很大的矛盾，如果美国真正的问题是内部空心化，是债务压力，是社会撕裂，是普通人对未来没信心，那你把中国堵住就能解决这些问题吗？
It all depends on the internal strength of the US, its own internal unity, the vitality of its economy, the diligence and intelligence of its population. That's the key. It is not how we can pull down somebody else, but how good you are yourself. There's growing self-doubt in America about their own weaknesses. You take the drug problem. It is very serious. You can blame fentanyl on China, you can blame cocaine on Colombia, you can blame heroin on Mexico, you can blame opioids on drug companies. But the deeper question is, why is the population so in need of numbing pain? In the last century, of course, in Chinese history, we blame the West for the Opium War. But why was there such a demand for opium in China? And not only in China, but in overseas Chinese communities in Malaya, Singapore, and elsewhere. See, when the body politic is sick, people feel a need to salve their anxieties. And there's the demand. And the demand will bring on its own supply. There's something sick in the US today. They know it. You take the slogan, "Make America Great Again." Let's analyze the 4 words. Make America Great Again means that it was great once. It is no longer great now. It's in decline. But we want it to recover. So the fact that America is in decline is no longer contested even by the Americans themselves. The key question is, can it recover? And it is this desire to restore an old position which created the MAGA movement, propelling Trump into power, first in the first administration and then now. The hope is to return to the past. But the arrow of history doesn't go backwards, it goes forward. His opponents also want to go back to the past, maybe to the Obama period. If you say no immigrants, and your own population is not capable of the same ability to work hard, to save, to have strong families. If you don't bring in people, your economy will decline further. If you bring in people, you change the demographics. And this is a tension deep in America today.
杨荣文讲得很直白，美国当然会想办法阻碍中国，但最后决定美国命运的不是他怎么排挤别人，而是他自己还有没有内在力量。这句话其实很值得中国人听，也值得美国人听。真正的竞争不是看谁更会掀桌子，而是看谁更能把自己的社会组织起来，把产业做扎实，把年轻人留在建设里，把普通人对未来的信心稳住。中国这几十年最有说服力的地方，也不是每天喊口号，而是很多事情确实落到了地上。路修出来了，工厂转起来了，供应链配起来了，电动车、光伏、港口、高铁、通信一样一样变成现实。这就是为什么外部世界有时候会不舒服，因为中国给出的不是一套话术，而是一套看得见的结果。
And this is the biggest drama in the world today, because if the US recovers, then there will be a certain stability in the world. But even that recovery will take easily 10, 20 years. If the US is not able to recover and continues on this trajectory of decline, the consequences for the world are enormous. I mean, look at the fall of Western Rome. It led to the Dark Ages. Look at the fall of the Ottoman Empire. The effects are still being seen today all over the Middle East and North Africa. Look at the decline of Qing Dynasty China. It led to the deaths of tens of millions of people. And out of all this mayhem, the emergence of Hong Kong and Singapore. And if the US continues its decline, the historical implications are far-reaching. We don't know. No one has a crystal ball into the future. We just have to say, look, in this scenario, it recovers, but it will take time. In this other scenario, the decline continues. Remembering that a wounded lion is a very dangerous animal.
When I spoke to some American scholars, they're actually telling me that this is just the US, being chaotic, being competitive, being very vibrant. They do not see it as exactly on a path of decline. How would you look at that? Like, this is just us, this is USA.
Well, some Americans will say that, and you often hear the phrase that no one has won betting against America. They look back at their own history, at the Civil War, which was a terrible war, dividing families. They recovered to become the greatest country on earth. After the two world wars, they became number one superpower. They went through a horrendous period during the Vietnam War when the campuses were in chaos because a whole generation turned against the establishment. It recovered. You had the Reagan Renaissance. So yes, it has a great capacity to heal. And we hope it can. Because if it cannot, if the condition is terminal, then it will be a very different set of scenarios that we've got to work on. It may come to be. When I went for my class reunion at the Harvard Business School just last June, two section mates, the section is very small, it's only 90 of us who stayed together in the first year. So the bonds of friendship are for a lifetime. Two of them came up to me separately and asked, do you think we're on the decline? I was surprised that they asked me that. They would never have asked me that question in earlier reunions. There is considerable self-doubt. It may be that when they meet foreigners, they puff themselves up and say, look, don't bet against us. But they themselves are not sure. And that's the reason for the ferocity of the domestic debate within the US itself.
再看美国那句让美国再次伟大，杨荣文说这句话本身就承认了一件事，美国人觉得自己没有以前伟大了。真正的争议不是美国有没有下降，而是美国人到底能不能接受。 世界已经不可能回到过去。过去那个美国可以靠美元红利、产业优势、军事投射和意识形态号召力，把很多矛盾往外转移。但今天不一样了，中国不是以前的中国，全球南方也不是以前的全球南方，连美国自己的年轻人也未必还相信那套旧叙事。所以这一期我们要看的不是一个人批评美国，而是他把一个大国的心理状态讲出来了。美国最痛的地方不是中国挑战了他，而是他发现自己不能像过去那样定义世界了。
Every morning we wake up, you check your mobile phone. Oh, this has happened. Trump has said that. Bombs has been dropped. Missiles have flown. Let us look at the markets. Oh, gold price is shooting up. Silver has dipped. Why? This is the world that we are now in. History is accelerating. And if we are complacent, if we think that everything is okay, then we're in serious trouble. So anyone who gives a pleasant reply to that question, that itself is a big problem.
这对中国来说也不是一句简单的爽文，因为一个正在自我怀疑的超级大国未必会变得温和。杨荣文用了一个很重的比喻，受伤的狮子很危险。所以我们既不用跪着看美国，也没必要用情绪替代判断。真正重要的是看清楚世界正在换挡。美国的问题靠打压中国解决不了，中国的路也不能靠等美国犯错来完成。最后还是那句话，别人怎么焦虑是他们的事，我们真正能抓住的是把自己的事情做深、做稳、做成。